I've started the
can
recording. No, I think we'll just go with the.
I think we'll just go, yeah.
Okay.
It
And
is what it is.
Twitch also does save the VOD now after we tested it the
Yeah,
other day.
we'll have
So
the VOD.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go.
okay. We are live. I think.
We're live.
Superb. I'm tweeting.
Just gotta wait for people to turn up.
I don't like that. I don't like that. It's my face.
It's you. You're the most important one. I forgot
Yeah,
that I have
the
a-
most important member of these Flimsy Rituals, Steve Martin.
Yeah, I mean that's true.
You
That's
are
true.
award-winning, after all.
The award-winning Steve Martin. I need to
The
get
award-winning member
What
of
shit?
these
Where has it gone?
Yeah. All right. People have already rocked up. Steve, you can't
Have they?
message in the chat.
Yes, I can.
He
My
can.
internet's being a bit slow, so I'm just waiting for things to catch up. Oh, I have lost everyone.
Well,
Right.
end of stream. Good
See you
night,
later,
everyone.
folks. That's it. Good night.
That's it.
So I'm just trying to get... No.
I don't know what that means. I just clicked it.
Bye.
F for stream. Oh, Abby's here.
Hey.
Okay,
Minimize Discord.
can people in the chat
Yay.
say whether they're happy with the audio and whether
Just
they can hear
testing, yeah.
everyone well? Now everyone has to say something so they can hear.
Oh, yeah.
Hello.
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 Woo.
Right. We're good.
Good,
Adam, it's all over to you.
Oh, great.
Even though you're small in the part. Do you want me to make you big for this bit?
If you can.
There you go.
I mean, I'm
make
not
it
sure
big
there's
for the
much.
intro.
Just put more pressure on me, right?
If you want to be
just so everyone
small,
knows, I mess up the intro
I
like
believe in
every
you.
recording. But yeah. Welcome to these Flimsy Rituals, an actual play podcast focused on telling small stories in big worlds. I'm your host, Adam Dixon, and joining me today is Ryan Evans.
hi, I'm Ryan. You can find me on Twitter at BrainXray.
Thryn Henderson.
Hi, I'm Thryn. You can find me on Twitter at Thryn.
And Elizabeth Simones.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. You can find me on Twitter at CSilfGames.
And I nearly forgot Steve, and Steve Martin.
Shocked. Honestly. How dare you? Hey, I'm the award-winning Steve Martin, and you can find me on Twitter at purple_Steve.
And you can follow the show on Twitter at Flimsy Rituals, and what other stuff? We've got a website at flimsyrituals.com, and we have a nice, fun Discord, which you can find through our pinned tweet. So today, we are going to be doing a Q&A about the first season of the show, which we just wrapped up. So we're going to be answering a bunch of questions about season 1, which is Tiding, and yeah, I'm looking forward to diving into some of these. Some of these are really good questions that people have asked us. We asked for a load before recording, and we've put a list together from that of the ones we really want to answer. And there's a few we might get to answer depending on how time goes, but we'll also be taking some more from in the chat. So if anyone thinks of anything as we're answering something, feel free to throw it into the chat and we'll try and get to it. Is everyone ready?
Ready as we'll
Yeah.
ever be, I think.
Yeah. Let's
Cool.
do it.
Ready?
Yeah. So I think the first question is from. Hello.
Sorry.
Is everything okay?
Yeah, it's
Ryan
fine.
did an ominous ooh. Cool.
If anyone has issue with sound and image not syncing quite right, it's because we're all in a group video call to me, and then I'm streaming it out. So if any video is slightly off, it may not be perfect because we're obviously not all in the same location.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but this is our quick fix that seems to be working, hopefully. But yes, So I think for the first question, we're going to start with like the basics. So we got this from Russell on Twitter, I think, which is how did we all meet and get the group together, and then how did we decide on the podcast name? How did we meet?
Role playing.
Yeah, pretty
yeah,
much.
I think largely.
Mostly.
I think like me and Thryn probably knew everyone, and then
Yeah.
some of the people, other like Steve and Ryan and Ziz, may not have known each other, and then they kind of met through being put together for this. I don't know.
Steve and Ryan were both in our previous roleplay group,
Yes. So we had, yeah. Go ahead.
and then Ziz we found, like
Yes.
a gift in the woods.
Yeah, so I think we did an online roleplay group which came about because Thryn used to run a really great event in London, which was called Video Brains, which was just people talking about video games and doing really like fun, interesting stuff through that. And
I
We
ran
had
this
this-
event with other people.
yes, yeah. But you know, you were a key part. And then we on the Discord we decided to do an RPG, which is like a sci-fi RPG that we ran for a year, which was a lot of fun. And then after that we decided to start recording. Does that
Pretty
sound
much.
about right?
Yeah, I think
I think we put a call out to see who would be interested in doing the podcast after me and Adam had talked a little bit about the kind of concept. And like the first people to reply were Ryan and Steve, who we'd previously done role plays with. And we're like, oh well, sort of done.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I think for like both of them we're like, oh yeah, Ryan's really good, Steve's really good. I really like the way that they like play games and play their characters, and both just really made sense. And then I think we both like instantly knew that Ziz was also very good and should be part of our show.
I think we might have specifically asked Ziz.
You did,
Yeah.
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 Because
I
we
think-
just were that keen.
To be fair,
I looked really good in a beard.
We did. Yeah.
I think like considering how absolutely awful my character was in our game, I'm amazed
learnt
you
nothing.
let me. Amazed you let me play.
Yeah, Steve played the world's like worst space gap year tourist and then went on to make Briss. So just 2 for 2 so far.
I think that's like what sold it though, like especially for Steve being able to play characters that aren't necessarily, oh, this is the most likable person in the world, but like are
Yeah, I
interesting and
think-
complex.
It
I mean, you know how they
just
say-
really enjoyed how much
Sorry, carry
you
on.
kind of threw yourself into I'm gonna be an asshole and that's my character and just like totally committed to it. But not in a way that got in the way of anyone else's play. It was just fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know how they say that like every RPG character you play is just basically yourself.
Steve.
Yeah.
And then we got Ziz in to be the opposite of that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause this is
we need a counterpoint. We need someone just good and pure. Let's get this.
yeah, but I think even when we first got together and we started doing the recording, it all clicked really well. I think that even from the beginning, when we were even just spitballing ideas and trying to think about what we wanted to do and where we were going with the show, I think it felt right even from the beginning. Like it was very easy to talk and feel like any opinion you had or idea was a valid idea. Even if it didn't quite work, it was fine. Just put it there, put it down, and it wasn't a problem, you know?
yeah, I think we did a lot of like working together, like almost like a very, very long extended session 0 in which we were working together to work out like what kind of game we wanted to play, what the campaign would be like, what different people's roles would be. And yeah, and did a lot of testing out different
4
rules
months.
and playing together. What was that, sorry?
I think it took us like 4 months to do that.
It
Yeah.
was pretty close to that. Yeah.
But I think it shows how important the rules are when you are getting started, because think about when we played our first online roleplay together, the first rule set we ever used for that was incredibly clunky and horrible.
Trauma,
Yeah.
man.
You
Jeez.
know, and it led to some weird parts and some weird parts of the roleplay that didn't seem to fit, like spending ages, bartering the price of your ship's admission into a planet, or bartering for the right to trade goods. It was all horrible nonsense.
My first character died during character creation. Like that's how deep Traveller gets. It's pretty heavy.
Yeah, this was like a little bit before the current wave of good sci-fi RPGs, in which we're just like fumbling around trying to find any that worked, and we probably used like 3 different RPGs over the course of that. But yeah, I think having that time to kind of practice how we wanted to play worked as well. I think we started at Traveller, then tried something else, then ended on like Fate, but using basically none of the rules.
I mean, all you need for Fate is the dice, really, isn't it? It's a good dice system.
We basically landed up on the Flimsy Ritual motto, which is, what are dice?
Yeah, fuck dice.
Yeah. So the second part of that question was, how did we decide on the podcast name?
I think that was at least 3 of the 4 months we spent world building, wasn't it?
Yep. I think we have like a channel in our like private like cast Discord, which is just us trying to work out names, and then turning to Google. Was it Google?
It was
We're
a
just-
random word
like a-
generator. So we set it to 3 words, and then we just clicked and clicked and clicked and clicked until something close to Flimsy Rituals came up, and then I think Thryn has dropped out the call.
Oh no.
So just as I was about to hand off to Thryn about where we got from, Thryn's back.
Can you hear us?
Hello.
Hello.
We
Thryn,
can hear you.
I was just about to
Yay.
hand off to you about where the Flimsy Rituals name came from after we were doing the random name generation.
Oh, I think like Flimsy and Rituals were both in this massive list of stuff we liked, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'd got this list of randomly generated names, and we picked out words. We were like, I do quite like those ones. And so we liked Flimsy Rituals as a phrase, but we weren't like 100% on it. And then I googled it just to see what the SEO would be like, and it turns out it's a secret Ursula Le Guin quote. Like,
Yeah.
these Flimsy Rituals exactly appears in one sentence in one Ursula Le Guin quote. So I was like, yeah, that's it. That's the one.
Perfect. Done.
did it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Named. I think I might pick up on a question from Luke in the chat next, because it seems to like tie into all of this, which is why the current
Chat
formation
questions.
of the opening spiel. What does it mean for you to tell small stories? What makes a big world? Talk to me about your creative direction and intent. Does anyone want to jump in on this, or?
You're the boss.
You're the one who said.
You're the one that says every week.
Yeah,
You did this.
I think we spent ages trying to work out what we do. I think we're still like spending a lot of time trying to work out how we like talk about the podcast, and Ryan as well. We were at Dragon Meet just before Christmas, and I think we just about got to a place where like, oh, we can describe what the podcast is like in a few sentences. I think the small stories in big worlds bit specifically, I think for me is about 2 things. One is about how we build worlds, like world building, creating big, interesting, thoughtful worlds that, at least in the case of like Tiding and Rhine, is bigger than the characters and has lots of stuff going on. And I think the small stories is, for me, about focusing on people in that world. It's about like creating big worlds, and this is about creating like these sort of big, interesting worlds, but like not presenting that just through the conceptual level, but like focusing in on what it's like to live in those worlds, what it's like to be a human and exist within those sort of like narrative spaces. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that, or is that a good?
Nah, pretty spot on.
Yeah, it's good.
I mean, the only thing I want to add is it's a big world because we got lots of big remnants.
Yeah.
Big ghosts. What if
I've-
ghosts but big?
We love things that are very large.
Yeah,
I thought you were gonna say mountains, but you got there.
I
Yeah,
did. I
that-
did. We got there.
which ties into a question from Cora, which is that they would love to know where the idea of remnants came from. They're really cool. And yeah, that was me and Thryn were sat having a chat at some point, and we're like, "What if ghosts were big?"
Pretty much it.
What if ghosts were really big? Think about it. What if ghosts were really big?
Think about it, then go and listen to the last 32 episodes of these Flimsy Rituals.
I think, in fairness, more seriously, we were talking a lot about influences like Shadow of the Colossus and things in that vein, where one of the mood pieces we really like is something like so huge and unknowable it just kind of becomes part of your world, and how neat that is. So that meme with the holding the potato, I just think they're neat. That's me, but with things that are really, really big.
Are you holding a ginormous potato?
I'm holding a very large potato.
I just think they're really neat.
I just think they're neat.
I think there's like a lot of it for me was like building on the concept of just like small gods being in the world. But like, what if they weren't small? What if they were big things you had to deal with?
Can you imagine how annoying it would be trying to go to work and you're like, oh, well, the remnant's going to be crossing the road for the next 45 minutes. I'm going to be late now.
Yeah, and I think it just comes to that thing of like, they're really big and interesting because what is it like to exist in the world where I don't know if they're quite gods, but I refer to them as gods quite often, but like gods are quite literal and real and in front of you.
And more like forces of nature than, you know, sentient things almost in some cases.
Yeah. And then there's that second part of like remnants, which is they have these big metaphysical effects on the world, which I think kind of came out from them being considered as ghosts and kind of came out from just loving like prophetic fallacy as a concept generally and going like, what would it be like to be in a place where it's just the area is about grief? Like, what would it be like to just walk through that place and try and resist that? Or if the area was about happiness, but like uncontrollably, like how does that affect people and how does that affect how people live their lives in those areas?
I think one of my favorite things about the remnants is that they come in a large part from all of us going like, how cool is it when you don't know something? It's just like there's loads of things we could answer about them and we just don't, because it's more interesting to be like, who knows?
And that was the thing. That was the thing that came from play as well. Like the episode where Vens finally reaches the Sharrow. A lot of that was spent with me and Adam just talking about, oh, what is the Sharrow? We've been talking about it for so long and we hadn't even got to the point where we thought about what it was or what it even looked like. You know, and that whole episode was just that, us working out what we thought it would look like and where we were going to go with it.
Yeah.
And how many double-decker buses tall?
How many double-decker
Which I got consistently wrong. Yes, this ties into a question from Danny, which is when world building for tabletop role-playing games, how do you tend to start? How do you keep going when if you get stuck? And how much of it do you tend to come up with on the fly whilst playing versus how much already exists?
95%.
95% is just while we're playing. Yeah, I think I was going to lean on that example that Ryan gave about it. So much of it is about, for me as a GM, is about leaving blank spaces on the map that players can fill in. So when it came to the Sharrow, we had some idea of what the Sharrow might look like through some of the world building we did. We did a world building game of The Quiet Year, which just didn't quite make it to release, just because we're still learning what we were doing, and we're all both nervous babies and bad at setting up recordings.
Also, it was about 7 hours long.
It was so long.
Yeah.
It was very long.
But yeah, like, so we had some idea of what the Sharrow did from that, but we just very deliberately didn't talk about what the Sharrow was or looked like. And like 8 episodes in, I was like, we should probably explore what a remnant looks like at some point, right?
I mean, it's big. It
Yeah.
walks in circles, and it's been doing it for so long that there's a canyon there. That's basically all we started with, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty
to,
much.
To give ourselves a hand a little bit, what we do have is we have a lot of mood boards that we kind of just update continuously when we find stuff that we think is interesting or is cool, and we will have those open when we play. So that when Adam's like, oh, what do you think that looks like? If you haven't already conceptualized something, you can just rapidly scroll through this Pinterest board and be like, aha, here we go. And we tend to pull from a lot of different images that we kind of will paste things in there and be like, this feels like what this region is like, but with more of this and then this and then this as well. And we'll kind of amalgamate a background level of what we think roughly the shape of something is, and then we'll fill in the details when we're playing with what feels interesting.
Yeah. I think like the thing for me, for that first bit of like when we're building for tabletop role-playing games, like the thing that is most important when I'm creating a world is almost like the tone and themes of the world rather than like what's actually in it. So for Ryan, it was going like, okay, so it feels a bit like almost like a Ghibli film or like a like one of the Earthsea books. Like that's kind of the feel we're going for, and like starting to like think about the themes about like community and how magic works in the world and like existing in the shadows of these big gods. And like once we had that and like we all kind of had a collective understanding of that, it became quite useful. Like you kind of know you can trust the players to kind of act in that tonal way.
I think the thing I will say, sorry Ryan, you opened your
it's
mouth
fine.
but you were too slow, is before we recorded a lot of episodes before we released. We worked for about a year on the podcast before we released anything, and a lot of that was world building, but not in any detail. It was a lot of feeling out like what mood we wanted in different places, what tone we wanted in different places, and kind of what our boundaries were for world building. Like, these are the things we don't think exist in the world. These are the things we don't want. And then we spent a lot of time shaping the empty space in which we then just impulsively dump facts and ideas when we're recording, which helps a lot, I think, like knowing what is and isn't feasible.
I think
makes
the other
it much
thing
easier on the fly.
I think the other thing as well is Adam puts in a lot of work, and not to say that
Yes.
not to say that all of this what we do is completely made up on the fly. There's large documents on our shared G Drive folder just with character names, character relationships, faction relationship, different factions all based throughout the world. And
we could record about 800 series at this rate.
But that's the thing, is that
Thereabouts.
Adam always has that stuff to draw from whenever something might come up in the story, and it's never forced upon us. It's never, oh, this is the information you get, you should go here. It's never that. It's that we're going somewhere, and Adam in the background is thinking, oh, well, who could be there? I mean, it could be this person or this group. They're going to bring us into this place. And it's never felt like we've been taken on a guided story. It's we've been going somewhere where we want to go, and this stuff is happening to us.
Basically, 4 of us impulsively make up things, and Adam has an enormous lucky dip barrel of NPCs and facts for which to draw once we've said something.
And animals.
And
Interesting animals. That's
I
important.
mean,
Horrifying, I think the word is.
think, like,
Horrifying animals.
90% of my world building, because that's what I'm interested in, is going like, okay, let's create some like fictional plants and trees and animals, and then I guess I should make up some names.
I think the thing I like, though, is that Adam puts a lot of work into that part of the world building, but it's never hidden from us. It's always available, and it's always quite collaborative. It's always Adam comes up with these documents and these ideas and these names and these places, and then kind of spills them into our Discord and is like, what do you think? Should we change anything? Like, what other names kind of work for this area? What would you put in here? So it's never like we're unwrapping a pristine gift of DM world building. It's always like, okay, well, I've done all the hard work for you, and now you can put some things in.
One of my favorite things we did early on in the Discord while we're doing like some world building, like slow world building before we started recording, is we had a channel. It might have been called, I think it was called Fragments of the World, in which it was just all of us just adding in like one-line bits of stuff that we might want to see in the world.
Yeah, like microfictions.
Yeah.
And then some of that has actually turned into stuff that's in the series, and some of it is just stuff we tweet on Wednesdays.
Yeah. But yeah, I think generally with world building, I do like quite a bit in the background, but I kind of do. I think through doing lots of like GMing and world building for other stuff, like I think a lot of it is that rule of like holding on lightly to stuff. Like I might have an idea of what's going to happen in an episode, who might appear, but like if someone totally counteracts that or gives me like a cool description in the moment, I will just throw it out and like that description rules.
It's a very nice thing that happens a lot where we'll get to a place and Adam will suggest something and be like, oh, do you think they're like this? And one of us will go, nah. And like no one will feel weird about that. Everyone is kind of okay. And like Adam is really good at them being like, all right, well then we'll figure out something that works for you.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's really interesting for me, like getting to the end of the season now and like looking back, is how different the entire season is from like my conception of it early on. So it like in my head I always imagined Strail being like this big boss, or like the, like the big like overarching plot.
Strail was like a
narrative.
huge thing in the Quiet Year for us, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Strail
just
was
like
the
the
Frost
best
Shepherd for anyone
friend.
that's played it.
And now it's a cuddly fucking
Took us 2
bear.
episodes to be like, excuse me, no.
Yeah.
I love Strail.
And it's stuff like I entirely didn't expect the crew to go through the caves. Like I expected them to just keep going north, and then they went in the caves and Corpus arrived. So like there's an entire alternate version of Tiding where Corpus just isn't a thing, which is really interesting to think about. Or like if they'd gone to a different territory before Senya and things like that. And I think especially we're playing a game, so the dice rolls always change stuff in really interesting ways as well.
Again, usually horrifying ways.
Yeah.
Imagine if any of us has ever rolled well on anything.
Never.
Hey,
I think I did once. I can't remember what it was for.
everyone wait till season 2. So many good rolls.
Yeah, we got all our good rolls out in the first first episode.
I genuinely had someone from another actual play like message me going like, I wish my like PCs had such bad rolls. It's so interesting.
It was both very flattering and such a sick burn at the same time. I wish we failed as much as you did.
But this is why we don't roll, because if you don't roll, you
Exactly.
can't fail.
I don't think I rolled for the first 2 episodes. Belka don't roll.
I feel like it was longer than that.
I think
Might
it
be
was.
longer than
Yeah.
Belka
Yeah,
was
there's a
just
point-
there doing things.
Belka was just there as a big mood.
I think the thing is, you just kept giving like perfect descriptions, where it's like there's no
I
real.
kept setting
thought
up
in there.
stuff that I thought Adam was going to make me roll for. Then he was like, nah, you just do it. I was like, all right, fine.
Yeah. Should we move on to another question?
Let's.
Sure.
Sounds good.
What? I think I skipped over one. Which one did I skip over? Aha. Why did you decide to take a rule set and make it your own? And why did you decide to take that rule set and turn it into a podcast? Which is from Alex, I think. I don't know. I can't remember why. I can't remember whether we discussed other rule sets early on or whether we just went straight for this one.
I think we did. I think we looked at like Saga of the Icelanders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the two that come to mind as having looked at early on or like through the campaign are like Sagas of the Icelanders and Archipelago.
Oh
Which
yeah, yeah. we
Is
talked about
really
that as well.
interesting as well. But like I think the more we looked at, I think we very early on knew that we wanted to play like a Powered by the Apocalypse world like system, and just because they play very well in like both generally but also I think for like actual play they're just really well suited to it. And I think we looked around for different systems that would work with what we wanted to do and the kind of world we wanted to do. But I think as we created the world and created like remnants and things like that, it became very obvious that we'd need something that would work like specifically for us.
And then Adam was like, what if I just write as a system? And because we have no value for his personal time, we all went, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
All right, sort it
Yeah,
out,
I mean-
mate. Next week, please. Come on.
It's the curse of being a designer, isn't it? Like, you can't just pick something up and play with it. You have to make it your own.
Yeah, so like in my like normal day job, I do freelance game design, so it's just like I can probably put a game together. That would work. Like I can probably do this.
And
And-
now, 2 years later, we're still writing.
Yeah, and we're still writing the game and still editing the game. And everyone is frozen for me.
It's just Thryn, I
Oh.
think.
Oh, yeah, Thryn's... Oh, no. What's happening?
Oh no.
Oh, no,
dear.
Adam's
What's
frozen.
happening again?
It's just
Oh.
us now.
It's
Uh-oh.
that Yorkshire
Okay,
internet.
It's the Ziz
All right,
song.
well, no, it's
Fine.
fine. It's fine, because I'm going to take over as host now. Hello, and
Okay.
welcome to these flimsy rituals. My name is Ryan, and welcome to the podcast that I put together and do all the hard work for every month. Joining me
Yeah.
today are my two lackeys,
Oh, rude.
Steve.
Hi, I'm Steve.
Steve
Lucky
doesn't
number
get
one.
time to talk, as is.
Recently promoted above Ziz for...
Oh, what? Both of you. Bad as each other.
Oh dear. I mean, I don't know if they're ever coming back.
I'm sure we'll get them back at some point. Should we just like
Hopes.
skip to the end of the thing and pretend we've finished it when they get back?
And that's how we
enjoying.
came up with everything. Let me just, if you give me a second, I'll bring up the questions.
Okay.
And
I mean, it feels a little bit rude doing it without them.
well, I mean, there might be
Has
questions
anyone in
that
chat got any stupid questions for us while we wait for
oh yeah, stupid
these
questions
technical issues?
that aren't for the good people in this podcast.
Yeah. Bad questions, please. Gives you bad questions. Because otherwise, I'm going to start asking them, and
I'll say.
nobody
Oh,
wants
yay,
that.
we've got-
Hey,
I'm
Okay,
hello.
good. We're
Adam's
saved for
back.
bad questions. Steve is going to ask us questions in
Okay.
the meantime. So
Who's gone? Is it just
It's still Thryn, I think.
It's still Thryn,
Okay.
and
They're
you're
frozen,
back, so-
doing a very. Oh, there they go.
okay?
That's fine. I'm sure they'll be back in a minute.
At least I'm not in the middle of the screen now. That's nice. You're welcome, internet.
Yeah, if there's four of us,
You're
it's well
welcome.
balanced. But yeah, should we continue or
Well, we do ask for
Oh,
bad
wait.
questions, and somebody's asked a good question, and that's the only one. So, what's the best action in Blades, and why is it a tune? It's not. The best action is Prowl, because it's acrobatics and sneaking, which are the two best things. How
I
dare
mean
you.
it's definitely a tune, but
I mean,
because the consequences are always so good.
Yeah, all right, that's fair. Yeah.
What were you saying, Ryan?
I mean, I was gonna say we did a whole podcast where we didn't need the attune action, so
Yeah.
it's not the best one.
It's
any
very
word from Thryn?
Is
Same.
Thryn just gonna come and sit next to you?
maybe. It's very windy here. I was kind of worried that our power line had just gone down, but no.
Oh. Adam,
Yep.
what are your favorite animals in
In
Rhine?
in Rhine, all of them, I think.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
That's
are there animals that I don't like in Rhine? I don't think so. I think maybe the big cow, the woodlouse cow.
you don't
Yeah.
like it.
No, I like the big woodlouse cow. I think that might
Oh,
be my
okay.
favorite. The ice bear is
Phew.
terrifying. Or at
The
least
ice
half
bear is
of
cuddly.
the top half of the ice bear is.
The ice
lovely.
bear is not. The ice bear is definitively, expressly not cuddly. Ziz. It's made
No,
of
the
knives.
top half
It
is very
nuzzled.
cuddly.
It's knives.
It
Knives and-
nuzzled.
I mean, everyone
Only his
knows.
feet
That,
is knives.
everyone knows that the best animal in Rhine is the flint hook.
No one's ever seen a flint hook,
No.
Ryan. We don't believe they
They don't
exist.
exist. They do not exist. It's a myth.
I think my two favorite animals that I think one we saw briefly on screen and one we probably haven't seen on screen. The one we saw briefly are the birds that are leaves. I liked those a lot.
That's good.
Yeah. They're really cool.
The ones we didn't see on screen is in my world building for Senya, we had something called a shucker, which is like a tiny little mole badger with like big claws that is designed for like breaking into like caskets and then just scavenging.
All right.
Tiny
Okay.
little scavenger moles. I don't think we saw any.
Okay, this is a
No,
good
I don't
question.
remember them.
We got a good question from Danny. If your characters were cheeses, what cheese would they be? And replace cheese with a noun of your choice.
I think this is an easy one for Briss. It's just something incredibly sharp and unpleasant, like a really, really old Stilton or something like that.
Ziz,
Ah.
what's Charla?
I'm gonna see whether I can work this out. I'll be back in a sec.
No worries.
Okay.
Dairy Lee.
I was gonna go with like a pepper jack.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I was thinking like something with
kind
fruit.
of mild, but with a little bit of spice.
Yeah,
With all the fires that Chalice sets all the time.
Ven's is mild cheddar, but
See?
with something in it. I can't think of what it would be.
Actually,
Jalapenos
entirely
or something.
wrong. I've been corrected. Chala is a ginger Wensleydale, and I think that also works. So we'll go with that.
All right.
Okay. Is this what cheese people would do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we're doing.
You led the way. What did you expect me to do?
You left
This
the
is what
kids
happens.
unsupervised.
But yeah, should we... I think Thryn is trying to work it, so should we continue on that question? And then...
The cheese question or a different
No, on the, when we're building for... No, it was about the rules, right? Yes, I think the thing that we quickly realized was, like, if we wanted a world where we had remnants and a relationship to that, we probably needed to build something that, like, worked on that way, like, especially with the magic and stuff like that. And I think partially where the inspiration for the particular system, like, especially the emotions stuff, was, I think, friends at the table had just started their season using the Veil, Twilight Mirage. And I think I was mid making like a general Powered by the Apocalypse world, Powered by the Apocalypse game work, and just went, oh, this emotion system just fits right into Rhine. Like, it just makes a lot of sense to have a system where it kind of ties into the emotional resonance that, like, remnants have. I think, yeah.
Yeah, you should check out the Veil, by the way. It's a very, very cool system.
Yeah,
If you like Cyberpunk, yeah.
It's good.
But yeah, we've kind of been continuing working on Rhine at the minute, which is one of the nice things about playing something else for a little bit, is currently working on the second version of Rhine, and I'm looking forward to having like newer stuff done. We've been like working on new playbooks and stuff like that. I definitely want there to be a Jackal playbook, and I definitely want to do more stuff with like the emotion system and like tying that into all of the bonds and stuff like that. I guess now we should wait for Thryn, because I think
Like,
There was a question for you to do all of the NPCs and what cheeses they were. Good luck.
What cheese is Shoe? What cheese is Shoe?
she was just like a cheddar, like a mild cheddar, just happy, kind of basic, but like everyone loves it.
Kind of basic.
Yeah. I don't know what cheese Captain Aloma Labrensis is.
Captain Loma Labrensis is like really moldy cheese. Cheese that you've left in the back of the fridge for ages.
On purpose because you hate it.
Yeah, yeah.
I think Aloma Labrensis is a cheese made by somebody who runs like a punk brewery. Right. It's got like really hip. It's got quite a sharp taste, and it's got like really hip print on the thing, and it's just loud and obnoxious and just rubbish, probably.
I think it's probably like a processed cheese where they've added something extremely like they've added like
Oh.
it's like a chili cheese, but they've just added like the hottest chilies they could find because they think that makes them look like hard or something.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah. So someone in chat has asked, they have a question about spiking. What is the process? What is that process representing? Does it make sense when in-game time passes whilst you're spiked and it affects checks you make later on? Yeah. Spiking is one of those things that in this second pass I want to look more into. So it originally is just how the Veil uses it. And just to remind people, the way it works is as you spend emotions, eventually you kind of mark the emotions you roll. And eventually that will fill up and the character spikes, and then they're acting within that emotion, which is a system I really like. But I do think I do want to tweak it a little bit. But I think what the process is representing is just. I think in the Veil, the process is representing when you act a lot in one emotion. That's the emotion that takes over. I think in Tiding, the thing that I'd like it to represent more, because I think it sort of makes sense, is also the emotional resonance of an area. So if we did a really good playtest when we first kicked off Tiding, which is basically a group of pilgrims climbing a mountain. I think it was technically Doyer's mountain. And like slowly being pulled under by like stone hands as like grief kind of got them. And like I kind of want more of that stuff to happen through the emotion system.
I feel like it kind of works a lot better when you're making lots of dice rolls in a row over a short period of time. Like one encounter is over a few hours or a few days, and there's a chance to spike within that. Whereas we tend to roll like once a month or so. So it just doesn't quite sort of gel at the moment with the way we play. But
yeah, it's really hard because like I think in my ideal world I don't mind it being long because like there are periods of my life that I look back at and go, oh, in that time I was mostly just feeling this and I didn't know it then, but that's sort of what was like dictating how I acted and responded to stuff.
And that's the thing as well. It does work in certain situations. Like, again, to come back to the episode where Ven's finally gets to the Sharrow, that whole thing that happened, and then Ven spiking in sad, it made total sense in that moment, and then continuing on after that session, even into the future stories where he was still spiked in sad for a long while because it just felt right. And like it does work in that sense, definitely, and helped with sort of helped me in what direction I was taking Ven's for sure.
I mean, Charla had an entire thing that made her spike even
did
more
you spike
often.
like 3 times in one session or something?
Well, because like it was just a lot easier for me to spike, and I guess maybe I rolled more often. I don't know. I just feel like I spiked all the time, but it made a lot of sense for Charla.
Yeah, I think as soon as you saw that move in
We have a
the
Thryn.
kid, you were like, I'm gonna take that.
Yeah.
Hello, Thryn.
Hello.
You're back!
I am back. The
Yay.
internet
Hello.
is very unhappy today.
Oh.
I don't think we're like in the middle of like a storm. I don't think that is helping very much. But
It is not.
yes. But yeah, like I really like the spiking system. It's a good way of balancing how the emotions work. But it is one of those, like, there's a few systems in the game as it works now. I'm like, I kind of want to revisit that and see whether there's a way to change it. Or, like, make it tie in a little bit more.
So what season 2's for?
Yeah. So, the next question. Oh, do you know what we did miss? I was going to, like, talk about not just the podcast name, but the season name.
Mm-hmm.
How did we come up with the name for the season?
We googled what are groups of birds called, and tiding was the one we liked best.
tiding is the collective noun for a group of magpies, I think.
Magpies. Yeah.
Yeah,
A tiding
which
of
I'm
magpies.
very into.
It's super good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know, I totally
Which
forgotten
wasn't just
that.
like totally off the cuff. We wanted something to kind of relate to the migratory properties of Ninut as a village.
Do
Mm.
that
magpies
was-
migrate?
The one we came up with.
Flint hooks do.
They don't exist.
They
Ryan.
do exist.
I think some magpies migrate. I think also.
The thing is, it's a good word.
It is a good word.
I think also
Let's not
like
let facts get in the way.
Our magpies migrate in Rhine, so
Fair.
There we go.
it also gave me like a good way to structure or like think about structuring the seasons in some ways. I don't know if it will turn out this way, but in my mind, I've got the like One for Sorrow song in my head. Like Tiding season 1 is definitely sorrow. I hope Tiding
yeah.
season 2 is joy.
No.
But we'll see.
Well,
We'll see.
we'll see. Won't
We will
about
see.
That.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Next question is from Tom, I think, which is what does these Flimsy Rituals film look like?
this is so good.
Yeah, when I started listening, the brain went to Norse Celtic adjacent place. But some of the inspiration images you've posted push into Miyazaki or even anime territory. So
I'm
what-
definitely closer to anime territory, I think.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
definitely animated in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One of the sort of key bits of art we had, from my point of view at least, was the sort of the one by Mobius,
Yeah.
the sort of canyon one, and like that art style. I mean, that informed the art we got commissioned
Yeah.
to some degree. You know, the colors and the sort of pastelness of the whole thing.
Yeah, I feel like Ghibli films we mentioned a lot in terms of the coloring and the tone and the feel. Mobius's work we mentioned a lot. Work by the artist we then got to do the season 1 art.
Yes.
Because that kind of body of work was all in kind of the color palettes, and that I think the thing that we really liked about all of those and some of the other inspirations that we have is the kind of like subtle texture of them. I see Rhine as very kind of flat, muted tones, but with a lot of texture, I think.
Yeah, and so the artist who did the season 1 artwork is Alyssa Chen, who
Yes.
did a really good job.
They did so good.
Yeah, and I think for me it is a little bit like Ghibli films, but maybe almost like leaning into that more modern style cartoon that's kind of come in play. Like She-Ra is a good example, or I'm trying to think of other cartoons. Ziz, you're
Ziz, you're the cartoon one.
Like Kupo was a
Yeah,
pretty good
yeah.
one, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Cubo's really good.
Okay.
Possibly Over the Garden Wall as well, although that's
Yes.
a little bit dark. Imagine that, but with a bit more kind of color in it.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think also on that like Norse Celtic adjacent stuff.
Banner Saga.
Yeah, Banner Saga is a big influence, like
Mhm.
especially in like story style and some of the animation.
This
Yeah.
didn't fly when we were talking about moodboards because only I had seen it, unfortunately. But I picture the world as very much like the Mushishi anime adaptation, the series, the TV series, which is available, some of it on Netflix, and you should go watch it. It's really good.
You
That's
said
what
it's
it is.
animated, so I will definitely
It
watch
is animated, so you can watch
Yeah.
it, which is very slow-paced, kind of muted, but very rich in detail, and that's a lot of how I see it, I think.
Yeah,
Someone in chat agrees with me. Yeah,
I'm gonna have to check that out then. All right, fine.
it's the best anime. It's really
I
good.
watched one of the episodes and it was really good, and it was about ghosts. And then for some reason I forgot to watch any more of it.
Hashtag branding
You should all watch it because it's really good.
and ghosts. Yeah. all right.
Actually,
Yes.
one of the weird inspirations, like having watched it recently, for how if in the future we're ever commissioning a Tiding TV show or anything like that, would be
happen.
the new animated Spider-Man.
Ooh, yeah.
Like
Into
in-
the Spider-Verse.
Right, Spider Verse.
Yeah, like not in exact visual style, but I kind of imagine that moving in the animated version of this, like moving between territories would probably feel like that in how it switches between animation styles.
Oh, like it would switch the style. Yeah,
Okay.
that's nice
Okay.
actually.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Like maybe not in the same big way, but like I think one of the things when we were commissioning the art for Art 2, which was done by Beck Mihalek, it was sort of like, oh, this place feels different to like what Ryan does, and the animation style is maybe slightly different to what Ryan is. So it's like got a little bit more of a realistic touch, which I like a lot, and a bit more of a concept art touch. But yeah. The related question was like, who plays your character in the film?
Yeah.
Which is harder for animated, but I guess like either
Well,
animated
you could
or
base the character off
Yeah.
your
yes,
face cast, I guess.
face or voice cast. Anyone got any ideas? Who'd like to go first?
Belka is India Moore. End. Done. 100%. That's it. They're a bit too young, because I think India Moore is like a little bit younger than me, like 20, 25 maybe, something around there.
Hmm.
And Belka definitely, I think, is like 37-ish. Belka's pushing 40, I think. So we might have to like age him up a little bit through the magic of TV. But like that's the face and the bearing and the stance that I imagine. And they're 5'8", so they're almost tall enough. I checked. Put them in some big heels. We'll be all right.
Getting the stilts on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Venz is definitely someone like John Hurt. I think someone that's older but can have that energy to sort of bring out of them when they need to do it most. I actually think a lot about his character in Doctor Who, actually, when he plays the War Doctor. And that sort of similar energy of he could be a timid, kooky old man, but then has that energy within him to become something more when he needs it to.
Yeah, a little bit of a dark edge.
Yeah, definitely. Like you don't see what's behind the curtain because he's not letting you. I think that's exactly
Ryan,
what it is.
Who plays Hot Young Vens?
That's a really good
I
question.
didn't have time to think about this.
Very important
Hot young
question to
Vens,
me.
come back to me. I'll have a think.
Gonzes.
So I only watch cartoons. So in my head, Chala is somewhere between Ponyo, especially the bits where like she's running with all of the waves and they're fish and they're like causing all kinds of destruction and just not really paying attention to all of that or really recognizing
That kind
how
of energy.
dangerous that is.
Yeah.
So that kind of energy, but like grown up a bit more. It's
I
like-
don't know why, but like,
And also Greg.
and also Greg. I
Oh,
just
yes,
always pictured Chala as just like a round Peruvian child in a big poncho, like just fast and wool.
So that's
Yeah.
I just don't have a in like
It would be a new talent.
yeah.
Is what
I don't have like the person for it. So I just have the like this is the kind of animation super excited with destruction all around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes,
Sounds about right.
and a huge red woolen poncho.
I remember one of the like when we did sort of a bit of feedback for each other in the like after the first couple of episodes. One of the things for Ziz was be more Greg.
Oh, yeah.
Just more Greg from over the garden wall, please. Just
Amazingly,
the hell
Charles
out of
got
a bit.
Candy
a lot more
camouflage!
reserved. Candy camouflage.
Do you have an idea of what Hubris would be, or?
Yeah, I've got the perfect one. An actress called Yasmin Al Masri. Let me get a.
Put it in the chat.
I will put it in the chat.
I have put mine in the chat.
Where? Damn it! Hold on. How do I do this?
Do I need
I
to
can
put
internet.
John Hurt in the chat? I feel like John Hurt as well.
Put Slam John Hurt in there.
Slam John Hurt in chat.
Just in case anyone doesn't know.
We have a
Oh,
lot
This
of
is-
very
this is gonna be a
young
ridiculous
followers, Steve.
Google.
Let's not assume they all know who John Hurt is.
Okay, all right, but at least he's an easy one to Google.
That's true.
Wait, I've lost the chat. Hold on. Separate window. Nailed it. Sorry about the ridiculous link. That's I just did the Google Images page. That's very much
that's
right.
Like, open those two tabs of India Moore and Yasmin Al Masri next to each other, and then just picture that fucking buddy cop duo.
Yep.
Love it. I love
How
that.
dare you call Briss a cop? What are you doing? What are you playing at?
Briss has a big cop energy.
Briss is a cop.
I'm hurt. That stings.
So I had to think about Hot Young Vens, and it's
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
either Jurassic Park Jeff Goldblum
Done.
or
But can we do the stilettos version where he's got the thigh-high red leather high heels boots?
I mean, yeah, sure.
What, in Jurassic
why not?
Park?
Is it
I
the,
don't remember that scene.
no, they did a stilettos version after the recent one where they recut everything and they added like they redid the original trailer with stilettos.
Oh no.
That's really
And
good.
it's very funny.
I gotta check that
What's
out.
the alternative?
Jason Momoa? I kind of can see that.
Ooh.
Okay.
Ooh. Yeah.
Somewhat
Because-
between those
Yeah.
two extremes.
Yeah, I feel like it's either that or Jeff Goldblum.
If Jason Momoa had like a strong Sheffield accent, that's my picture.
Yeah.
A strong Sheffield
four
accent
arms.
and two extra arms.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, should we
God.
talk about NPCs? We
Yes,
had like a
let's
brief
just-
chat
let's spend
yesterday.
the Next hour just face casting NPC.
It's such
I mean,
a
we
good
spent like
question.
an hour doing it yesterday. The only ones I wrote down were apparently like Shu was maybe someone like John Boyega.
She is John Boyega, and I will die on that hill.
Yeah.
Lots of that energy. I feel like maybe like Marky Richardson, who plays Reggie Green in Dear White People, might be a good Callan.
Yes. That's a
Very
good
like
plan.
square face and like athletic build.
Mm.
And the one like we used like because I basically created the character from a face cast is that cast is Sam Elliott.
Yes.
Yeah, you've got to have Sam
100%.
Elliott in there
Cast
somewhere.
is absolutely Sam Elliott.
Yeah. I don't know.
Also,
I can't
also
think of
Keen as Kelsey Grammer.
Keen is Kelsey Grammer.
Stop this!
Your love.
Keen is much hotter. Sorry.
Keen is much hotter than Kelsey Grammer.
Keen is basically the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, or the cartoon
Hot.
version of Marvel's
Yeah.
X-Men.
Yeah.
Like somewhere
Specifically
between
the
those
X-Men
two.
Evolution version, I reckon.
Who would play Corin?
I
didn't
hadn't
we
thought
have
about
this?
that. I've been very in character and not thought about Corin at all.
We're talking about
Corin
I can't
who?
remember who it was.
Sorry, who's that?
Tom Holland, maybe.
Is he a bit old?
Who did,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, no.
Who did I mention yesterday as like? I can't remember who I mentioned yesterday,
Mm.
but it was a kid from something we just watched, and I was like, yeah, that's
I mentioned the kid from Dark Materials, the one who plays Will.
yeah, or the one that plays Lyra's friend.
Those are two very
That-
different options, but both.
Yeah, like Will, but with Lyra's friend's energy. I think is how I imagine Corin.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Two
Is-
people
is
have
anyone
said
else?
Thomas Brody Sangster.
Who is who is?
I've got no idea who that is.
I'm gonna
To
Google.
Google.
I was trying to find someone who would be Ioff, but
Oh,
basically
it's-
anyone
it's
who
that-
has to be
It's
Aladdin.
that kid. The kid who
Oh,
was in
that-
every film for about 10
No.
years being a kid.
I should just say no to our fans. But
No,
no.
sorry.
No, we're not
You're all wrong.
No.
I don't know who would play Captain Aloma Labrensis. That's the big question, right?
Who's very
Oh.
punchable? Someone with a really punchable. That kid
Fake.
who we just linked.
It would be like Sacha Baron Cohen or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
something like that.
Oh,
That's a good. I also thought like
Oh.
maybe Timothy Chalamet.
Ooh, Timothy Chalamet, I could see as being a Loma. I
Or,
would
like-
punch Timothy Chalamet.
I guess the question of like if I was going to like do a cameo in the film version of Tiding, I imagine
you.
I would be Captain Aloma Labrensis.
You can't just put yourself in for the big payday.
Aladdin
Adam.
Labrensis.
Adam the Princess.
Thinking I'm coming in for like a cameo and then just being like, oh, I'm the main villain now somehow.
What about Russell Crowe?
Too buff, I think.
I couldn't punch Russell.
Too
Russell
haggard.
Crowe.
I could. But I still don't think it's right, but I could punch him.
Should we move on to the next question?
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
like,
Fine.
let's continue this in our Discord because I imagine there's lots of interesting
Come to our
options.
Discord and face cast NPCs with us.
Like, Jeddah could maybe be Logan Browning, or I can't remember her name,
One
but
from Star Trek.
from Star Trek Discovery.
I put it in the Discord. Hang on. Where did I put it in the Discord? We have so many channels.
So many channels.
Oyen Deo, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, I think she'd be good at Jeddah.
Someone in the chat mentioned Shora Dashlu, who I think is the person from who is from The Expanse, who plays like the diplomat in The Expanse, who I feel like a slightly younger version of her is sort of Filter.
Yeah. Good.
Calson is also good.
Person.
An older version for Calson, definitely, or like someone finding someone with the right like body size for Calson is hard, but.
Actually, yeah. Talking of The Expanse, Frankie Adams was another one for Briss.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question is one for Belka, one for Thryn, which is: does Belka speak the way they do because they're speaking a language other than the one they grew up with?
Yes. I'm glad that comes across because I was worried it didn't. We don't want to do accents at all, if possible.
We've all seen what happens when we do accents.
Not just because we aren't good voice actors, which is true, but also because it's very easy to be pretty offensive in doing that without meaning to. And I think what I wanted instead was a manner of speaking that suggested Belka was having to think through what they say before they say it. And I talked to like a couple of my friends who are bilingual for that, and I looked at a lot of Tumblr posts from bilingual people, and I just watched a lot of YouTube videos. And the thing that seemed the most doable without being kind of shitty was the kind of staggered sentences where you say a bit of something and then you have to pause and think through the next thing, and then you say a bit of something, or just like putting the pauses in slightly the wrong places. And just describing things instead of naming them.
Yeah.
To kind of bring across that part of Belka that is they actually probably are smarter than people think they are, but they have to translate on the fly, and so they can come across as a bit like what is a soup? They know what soup is, they don't know what the word soup means, you know. It's
I mean, they're definitely a lot smarter than Briss thinks they are, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and I'm looking forward to when that comes to light and Briss is just like, what?
I enjoy like Charlotte's initial belief was just like Belka is a fool and I'm going to teach them.
I must help them.
I think that
I'll teach
helped.
them soup.
Yeah. It helped get that bit of character across, I think, for Belka. It helped integrate them with Ninut much more smoothly, and it helped a little bit try and characterize what is a big part of Belka's background in a way that isn't grim to listen to. So.
Yeah. I think it's one of the things I was trying to do with IOF that never quite pulled off is emulating Belka's way of speaking.
I like to think it does come across, but obviously I can't say. I think it would be audience judged. But we did a little bit of back and forth as kind of Belka and Iov to try and get Iov like imitating the way Belka speaks to imply that it's Belka who's taught Iov the language. Oh. It's a fun little fact for you.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So the next question is, how do you decide on the opening extracts? I assume it's chosen after recording. It is. Yeah. So most of them were written quite a way after recording. A lot of them are written when we've got like a bunch more episodes past that point. And I think that's what allows us to do some of the foreshadowing that we try and put into the opening extracts. I think we often use them to sort of bring a bit of structure to the play and like remind people what the bigger picture stuff is that's happening. But yeah, I'm wondering if anyone else has any thoughts on how we do them. I think I tend to, for the start of the season, I definitely wrote like a bunch of them at the same time, and that's what I'm planning on doing for Embrace. But towards the end of it, there was definitely a period where it was like, okay, I'm going to write this week before this episode goes out and record it, and yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing as well that came from it was, as you were saying, using it to do the foreshadowing. Because obviously when we're playing, we don't know what's coming ahead. And once we got ahead in that sense, we could work out how to use this information to make these stories. So I think that we have done that for a lot of things. And even when we were wrapping up now, the end of season 1, I know that when I was writing out the letter to Keen for Venz's last episode, you know, I was using stuff that hasn't even happened in season 1 from that was cut from some episodes we did with some other people, you know, and that information, that it was really good stuff, but in the end it was a shame we couldn't use it. But obviously I wanted to get that information into the story, and that was a good way to do it.
Yeah, I think like one of the reasons we decided to do it is because it does allow us to broaden our world a little bit, and it allows us to hint at other stuff and build in information that we don't necessarily see through this very narrow focus of the 4 characters, but that impacts them in play. I think one of the ones I remember, or 2 of the ones I remember from the second arc, was using the intro to do all of the what happened in the cave stuff as a wrap up was like very useful as a way of doing that quickly on screen. And I think also trying to get some of the bigger picture faction stuff that was happening in Eulogy in the intros as a way of explaining that, rather than just seeing it through the view of the players, because it helps clear things up and make things less confusing.
It gives us kind of space to explore all the directions around the exact moments of the story that happen in play. We can kind of look a little bit to the future, so obviously all of the intros that come from like Avon the Verrunt are written as a book after everything that has happened in Tiding has happened, so it's nice to... It gives us space to explore how people remember what happened versus what we're showing in play as what happened. It gives us space to kind of explore what came before Tiding and what has led us here that we can't really, without being really exposition-y, look at in the episodes, but we can be like, oh, well, these world events kind of led us here. And it gives us a lot of space to look at the characters in a bit more depth as well. I think some of my favorite intros are Briss's ones, because Briss has had like a genuinely really interesting and moving kind of character arc over season 1 of Tiding that is very powerful on its own, but I think with Briss's intros shows a lot about why she is who she is and how she's got to where she is and why it's such a struggle for her during this kind of emotional development arc. And I think it would have been good without them, but it's better with them.
Yeah, like while the rest of you were using your intros to expand the world, I was just very selfishly going, no, me. This is about me.
All of Belka's are about Belka.
Oh, yeah.
I guess like Briss is a character that has like a lot of like interiority that doesn't necessarily come across. Well, it does come across on screen, but it comes across through the relationship with Corin and the other.
It's nice to have space to see that inner monologue that she obviously does have, but we're never going to see like in an episode.
Yeah.
Yep. And like quite a lot of her, like the way she is because of what happened in the Quiet Year game, which no one's ever going to hear. So it was like, we kind of got to get
How can we rehash
gotta
this
get a bit of that
somehow?
so that she makes sense and isn't just a complete asshole, just mostly, or at least an understandable asshole.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any more on I wanted to say on that, but I think there's the point that Thryn made, which is one of the things I don't think we've seen much of, but we might see more of it in the future. Is when writing all of the intro episodes, I kind of don't want to be too held back by what has happened in play versus what is happening in the intros. So I think, especially with like Avon Furtherant and some other people, I like creating that difference between what is happening in their version of events versus what is happening that the players are seeing or like the audience is seeing. And I
Yeah,
think
I
that
think
might become a bigger
it's nice to see the world reacting to our character stuff.
thing.
Because obviously we have a very strong perspective on it that others might not agree with.
Yeah, and I'm kind of I think a lot with Avon is very focused on like this hero's journey story arc in their writing, which is totally broken in the actual telling of the story through play, which is a really nice thing that I enjoy doing.
Sorry,
Um,
Avon.
Sorry, Avon. Yeah. So the next question is from Luke, which is if you could play any NPC from the show as a played character, who would it be? Bonus points for what playbook you'd use stroke invent for them. Apparently we're meant to be getting points.
Oh,
Oh,
have you not
okay.
been keeping track of points? I've got
No,
loads.
I
I've got
haven't,
so many
sorry.
points.
Okay. Yeah, would anyone have any thoughts?
Oh, I thought this was for you specifically because you don't
Oh.
play. Do we all have to
Oh,
pick
okay.
an NPC?
Whew.
I guess anyone could. I guess one of the things I will start off with is the Heart playbook was originally written for Jeddah, I think. So like
Yep.
sort of Jeddah would maybe be the person I would have played as right from the start. I thought Thryn was going to be playing as Jeddah as their character, but meant someone from the parish. Which is why they ended up like Belka and Jeddah sort of have some similarities. Which I quite like. And I think it definitely has worked out better that Belka is from the parish because I think it gives us a nice split of like 2 people from the village, 1 person from the parish, and 1 person from just the Sharrow and the wider world. I'm trying to think of any other NPCs without just going like...
Shoot.
Yeah, like I get to play them all. I get to create like endless
true.
OCs and just play all of them. Maybe Memento Mori.
Ooh, that's
that would be
good
good.
choice.
Yeah.
As someone that's currently working on an envoy playbook for Rhine, maybe it's just Memento Mori because, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Maybe also like someone like Tilla Brecht. I don't know what playbook Tilla would be.
That's a
What
tricky
pivot
one.
would Tilla be? Like just, I guess like outsider.
Yeah, that maybe makes sense. Or I guess I'm making like a villager playbook as well, which would maybe fit that. Like lots of just... Yeah, lots of like managing resources, which...
If I
Yeah.
could play an NPC, I'd play Corin to keep him safe from Steve.
That would be very
We
good.
did actually discuss very, very briefly, because the whole point of the Guardian is that they've got a kid, and it's like, hey, we've got a kid. Chala, do you want to be...
Can you imagine if Chala?
Do you want
had
Chala
a
and Briss to
son?
be related? It's like,
No.
nah, it's less interesting now. It's much more fun to have Chala ruining Briss's child than it is to have her.
I think setting up that triangle
Saving.
characters
Saving.
like was just a very good dynamic
Yeah,
that
it's
we
really good.
got to really early on. Are there any NPCs anyone else would play?
I
Aloma Labrensis.
I knew
I
you'd
you know
say
what I
that.
knew you were going to say
Yeah.
that.
I would play such a good Aloma Labrensis, I
Yeah,
reckon.
you would.
Mm.
Am I allowed to pick Leaf?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
Absolutely,
that
yes.
works because I was going to pick Cast.
Aww.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah!
I
Tidy
also
B-side.
expected that you would say Cast, Ryan, because you're basically playing Cast for season 2.
That's true.
Oh yeah,
No, I'm not. I'm absolutely not.
The
Yeah, you are. I'd quite like to play IOF actually as a kid.
Ooh,
Yeah,
like young
I think that would be
I
fun.
guess IOF would be. I don't know what Playbook IOF is. Like a Weaver, maybe?
Yeah, I think I was a Weaver,
Possibly.
right?
Hmm. Like Vilta's definitely a Weaver. Vilta would be fun-ish to play. I guess you wouldn't do much for the first arc, but after that.
Roll to see if you wake up.
Playbook for I
Vilta's
guess,
nap time stories. Sorry, Ziz.
I guess Leaf would just be an envoy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could also play as the Ice Bear, I guess, which would be.
You can play Gisela.
No
No.
knives.
Can I just play as all of the
Pull a Nate Crowley and just play every envoy.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I think the other one that I'd maybe play as, like seriously, is Raoul Estvelren,
Oof,
the
no.
Jackal, who would be the
Yeah.
Jackal playbook. Yeah, I like it, partially because I did spend some time just writing like some fiction, like some fan fiction of my own world featuring Raoul and Darish. Because I just wanted to work out who they were a bit more as characters, and Raoul is quite fun, and also quite boring, but like in a fun way. Yeah. How many points do we get?
100
What-
points each, I feel like.
What's the
Okay.
points thing?
Apparently, you
I've
get
totally
points
missed
if you
it.
can name a
Gonna give us
playbook.
Oh, nice.
Oh, this is gone.
Oh no.
Bye-
Oh
bye,
no.
Ziz.
I
Goodbye,
think
Ziz.
Ziz's chair's fallen over.
It's a lovely shot of her floor.
So I mean,
Hey.
this leads quite well on to the next question, which is by Ben, which is, how do you find recording remotely? Is it of roleplay? Any on the way you play,
It's
stroke
like
have built your
this.
characters, or run the game? Yeah, it's like this. There's lots of interruptions sometimes, but
Lots of
I quite like it.
Steve.
I think there's less interruption than there is
Leaf?
unending silence because no one wants to talk over anyone, but we can't see whether someone is gearing up to talk. So we just all sit there like, I'm gonna do it. Oh.
Do you know what? And I think this leads on to something I was going to say earlier, of which why we'll never ever release that first recording we did for the Quiet Year, because it was so awkward. Like
Yeah.
listening back to it was so difficult because we didn't know how to flow yet. We didn't know how to leave gaps for each other and make it work without us going like over each other constantly. And I think that's definitely something that has come in time. It's never like an awkward silence, but I guess that stuff does get taken away in the edit. But
Yeah.
it's a lot
And I
better
mean-
than it was.
Yeah, I trimmed some of it down, but I think what we have got better at is as we've played more sessions, we've become familiar enough with each other's characters that we know roughly when someone else will want to do something. So there are a lot of points where I maybe think about doing something in a scene and then I go, actually, I reckon Briss will have something for this. And I just wait those extra 3 seconds for Steve to like jump in and say something. And I think we're getting quite good at that now, anticipating when someone will want to do something.
Yeah.
I mean,
On the
As demonstrated.
As demonstrated
Carry on, Ziz.
flawlessly.
well, in that first episode, The Quiet Year, I hadn't actually met Steve in person, I don't think.
Yeah.
no.
And I'd never roleplayed with any of you.
Yeah.
No,
Mm.
that was the first time.
Yeah.
Well, we had done a warm-up session, right?
Yes.
Mm,
Yeah, we've done
I
the
did that-
playtest.
Yeah, we did the
Okay,
playtest
the first.
first.
but yeah, no, I didn't meet Steve for like a while. And
Is it that you met Steve when we launched the podcast?
yeah, I think so.
I think that was the
Yeah.
first time we were all together in one room. Is we
Yeah.
all met at Ziz's and released a podcast.
Just press the button and we're like, well, now
And I was
what?
like, oh, hello,
Yeah.
person that I've been
Wait, was I
running
there
with
for
every
that?
week.
I don't
Oh, maybe
Very
remember.
Ryan
briefly.
wasn't there.
No,
I don't
Ryan was there
remember.
very briefly, but I don't think you were there when we launched it. You were there
Hmm.
that weekend, but not the day.
No.
There's a question in chat that says, does that make the editing a nightmare? And the answer is yes. Yes, it does.
Ask Steve about spaghetti.
Ask Thryn about my spaghetti.
The problem with recording remotely is that you're in a room by yourself and you think you can get away with a lot more than you could otherwise. Like, for example, eating your spaghetti dinner mid-scene.
I thought I was muted.
Reader, he was not muted.
I'm so sorry. That was like 2 years ago.
I'll never let you forget. The editing has got a lot better as we've gone on. I think we are all much better role players, which cuts out a lot of it. So earlier on, there was a lot more starting a scene, restarting a scene, saying something, re-saying something. And now we don't get so much of that. The editing is a bit of a faff because obviously there's a lot of pauses to remove when there's a bit of lag on the line or when we're just like waiting for someone to say something. But it's not as much as a nightmare as previously.
Yeah.
I think we're doing pretty good now.
I think it's also changed the way that we roleplay. Like this setting, the way that we roleplay and doing this, it is different. You wouldn't roleplay like this in real life. It would be much more not talking over each other, but feeling like you could cut in and say things. Yeah. Whereas this is very different. We know that we are playing something that is being recorded, and we play that way. And
so what we don't do either is we don't have video when we record sessions. We just can't see each other at all, which was weird initially, but I think we've all kind of got used to now. It might help a little bit in terms of being able to gauge when people want to say something or gauge how someone's feeling about a scene. We have to check in with all of that audio only because it just slowed everything down too much, like laptop wise. My laptop is very old and sick, as is Ziz's, I think.
Please,
and
my laptop.
Please, she's so sick. And we just couldn't have video and be recording a master and be recording the separate Audacity tracks and be on Discord and be on Roll20. It was a bit too much, so we just don't see each other when we do the sessions, which is interesting. But I think because we're all very good friends now, whether we wanted it or not, it's not too bad. We're all comfortable, I think, gauging on voice how someone is doing, and we're all comfortable vocally being like, I'm not enjoying this scene, or I need a minute, or I don't think that worked.
Yeah,
I think you have to be. Sorry, go on.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say we often have like a second channel just going on through like Roll20 or Discord, where like people will say stuff if we need to check in on each other sometimes, and yeah.
And in terms of the crosstalk for audio, we all record a separate Audacity track, so I can mute someone in the editing process. There's a lot of crosstalk where I just go, one of these people was saying something more interesting to the scene, they get to live. Then I just mute the other ones.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of muting. Like, you probably, as an audience, don't see a lot of the just checking in to see whether someone's got something to say. We often cut a lot of that from the episode just to make it a bit quicker. But there's often a bit of
like scene chat in the tea break as well. Be like, what do people want to do next? What are you planning on doing? So we can kind of anticipate a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if someone ever pays us one day, you'll get to hear the clapcast.
I am working on the clapcast actually. So no promises, but there's some stuff.
Remember the logo turtle?
The other thing I was going to say.
Oh my god.
The other thing I was going to say on this question, just because it kind of came up about people becoming better players, is there is nothing that will make you a better GM faster than recording an actual play. Like I have like GM'd for quite a while, like since I was like a teenager, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm okay at this, like I'm fine. And I started doing this show and was like, oh god, I am absolutely not fine. This is terrifying. What do I do or say? And like I think a bunch of that is like you start to learn better prep or better like methods of improvisation, but you also start to learn about trusting and leaning on your players a bit more, I think. Like, there's a lot of times when, like, I don't genuinely know that. I'm just going to pass it over to someone else. And because, like, these four are all so great, I know that at least one of them will have something good.
Yeah,
and
I
if they
think
don't, just edit it out.
the thing I would say about recording remotely rather than in person is that it is work. I think we all actively work at it to make sure that it doesn't become awkward or difficult. But we get along and we like each other, so it's like fun work. Work.
Don't do that.
No.
No.
And-
No.
I guess that,
Cut that bit.
like that other part of the question of like, is it our usual method of roleplay? I think no. Like
No.
we definitely did an online one, as we said, when like which is how me, Ryan, Steve, and Thryn kind of started doing like role playing together.
It was my very first roleplay.
Was it really?
25, maybe, probably about 25 when we did it. Yeah, that was the first one I did. I did that,
Wow.
and then I did this podcast. That was it. I
Yes.
got 1-1.
And that was like lots of learning how to do a lot of this, like saying, I need to think about this. Can I just have a moment? And making sure like you build space for yourself. But I think having started this podcast and doing this online, I literally can't run another online role playing game. It just is too much.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do one for fun while we're recording the podcast.
I've run campaigns in like the real world, like at the same time, and that's fine. But online just does not work.
I've never been able to get an online game going like regularly and reliably, apart from that one that we did. Yeah.
So when we were talking about Steve's spaghetti monstrosity, someone in chat asked, "Is that why you wanted someone to ask if you've ever had to re-record something?" And the answer is no. That's
Welcome
a separate event.
Welcome to Dark Vens.
Welcome
We've
to
never.
Dark Vents.
What do you mean?
I
We've
forgot
never
about
re-recorded
this.
anything. Never ever.
So who did we pressure into asking us if we re-recorded something? Was it Danny?
I think Danny asked us, yeah.
Yeah.
Ryan, would you like to regale us with the one and only scene we have had to completely re-record for these Flimsy rituals?
We've never had to re-record anything for this podcast. I don't know what you're talking about.
Ryan.
So I remember, I think Vence had leveled up, so he got a new move in his playbook, and that session I was just so focused. I think at the beginning of the session I said, I want to use my new move, and I was so focused on using this new move that it just overwhelmed my sense of direction for Vence. This is the ultimate dark timeline where Vence kills two people just because they were in a house, and then steals their spirit and just fucks off. And Shu tells him specifically to fuck off and walks off.
Only two times Shu has said fuck on the podcast. One was at the shower and one was at Vence.
This is specifically the scene where you went to Cast's house and
Yes.
the two characters Javelin off and were like stealing from Cast. So like it made sense to some degree, like your reaction. It wasn't just I was gonna kill them. It was like they clearly were stealing from a friend.
Stealing bread, gotta kill him.
But yeah, I think it was a combination of like blood flowing to your head because you wanted to try out this new move, and also you like I think we weren't quite sure who Vence was as a character.
Yeah,
and you were trying to build.
Yeah.
Like,
Turns out
is he a darker character? And it turns out no.
No.
It wasn't.
In fairness, yeah, it was a really interesting thing because we played through the scene and no one really said anything about it. We got to the end of the episode and we usually do like a quick decompress after we finish recording where we just like chat about how it went and the logo turtle and shit. And there's like this moment of silence and then Ryan was like, I don't know if I did that right.
Yeah.
I don't know if Vence should have murdered.
It weren't it, Chief.
I think
it's an extremely relatable RPG problem, isn't it? Getting a new toy and just wanting to stab somebody with it.
Yeah, and like we couldn't cut the scene completely because Vence like picks up Cast's book, I think, and figures out like what has happened to Cast, sort of, and it's what kind of sends him back to the village to like check in and stuff. So it was an important scene, but because it didn't go as intended, the choice was basically just, I guess we re-record the whole thing.
We were just lucky that it was a scene with just Vens and Shu,
Yeah.
which was
Yeah.
really lucky, actually, in a sense that we just went back, revisited the scene, and we literally got to the same point, and then the paths split where what you guys heard actually got released, and Dark Timeline is forever binned.
I think that was like one of the first points though where we very seriously thought about who a character actually is in play, and that did spur a lot of conversation where we then went, hey, should we like keep an eye on this as we play?
And actually it made me write down in my notebook that I have now lost my key role-playing ideas for Vens and what he was like as a character, and I always had that book open and on my desk every time we played from then on, because it was something that I wanted to remind myself of and keep my character on track. And that's fine now because I understand who Vens is as a character, and I don't need those reminders anymore. But at that time,
I think it was,
it was a lot.
It was kind of interesting because it was an interesting scene, that first version, and it was an interesting direction to take Vens. It just, we got to the end and went, but that's probably not the right one for this story. And I think it's useful to do that both like as an actual play, but it's also sometimes useful to do that through roleplay as well. Generally, there's definitely been role-playing games where it's like, oh, actually, can I just take back what my character did there because I just want to change something about it? It was useful.
Yeah, so we're lucky it worked out in the end, basically, that we could go back and change it.
I think it was a tonal point for the series as well, where we could have just been like, oh, let's go wacky Japes, Vens, Murder Hobo, and then we all went,
no.
nah.
It wasn't right.
Yeah.
It wasn't right, and it was good that we went back to change it. And it shows how comfortable I felt to be able to say to everyone, I didn't like that. Can we go back and change it? Because it was, obviously it meant more work in the end to make it work, but it was better for the story to go back and change that.
I just remembered that the other Darkest Timeline Vens that we briefly considered when we were setting up the characters, which was like Vens' body wasn't his first body, and that he was hopping between bodies to like stop unraveling, and that's why he was teaching
that's a
Corin.
callback.
And that was like very quickly vetoed, but I just
about
remembered that. God, Vens could have been a much darker character.
Imagine the universe where all unraveling people just hopped bodies instead of tying themselves to remnants.
Yeah.
That could have been it. That could have been real Dark Timeline.
Real dark Vens.
Like, I might reuse it somewhere, but yeah. So we have like some specific questions about the final 4 episodes, and then I think that's most of the questions done, apart from the one most important question, which we'll get to the end. So the first one was like, which order were the final 4 episodes recorded in? And I can't remember.
Would you like me to find out?
We could have I will have a guess, and then we'll do the official verdict.
Okay,
So my
you have a
guess
guess
is, oh god, I think we did Ryan and Thryn's on the same day. I thought it was Ryan and Steve's to start, but I think it's Ryan and Thryn's, and that was after. I think maybe Ziz was first, then Steve, and then we messed them up because it made more sense.
We did. Feel free to answer another question while I find out whether you're right or not.
The other two questions. The other 2 questions about the final 4 episodes, or like the ending, were, will consuming, I guess more theoretical questions, as will consuming Doya specifically potentially make Corpus weaker, since it will know what dying is and how to die? And is Corpus secretly a good thing because it's able to unite physical and spiritual remnants, albeit by absorbing them?
Some people think so. They're wrong.
Yeah. I don't want to answer specifics, but maybe I guess this comes back to like the interesting thing from like a lot of media that I like and we've kind of spoken about before is villains. I'm not like a big fan of like villains that are villains. I'm a big fan of like that sort of almost like Steven Universe style thing of like going like, oh, but at the end of the day, all villains can be defeated by just like talking to them. like not all the time because there are fascists, but you know, some. But like I think that's what happened with Strail, and I could see that happening with Corpus. I honestly don't know where Corpus is going to go, but like at the minute in my head, it's Corpus is effectively like a geopolitical weapon, and I don't, but like a geopolitical weapon with like a childlike sentience. So I don't know what's going to happen with Corpus, and I don't know where any of it's going to go, or like how Corpus is affected by like consuming remnants in that way. I think it's we spoke about like leaving blanks, and Corpus is a big blank. But yeah, I'm just not sure how that's going to play out.
A weird yellow fleshy blank.
A gross blank. I don't know if I actually can figure out which order we did the episodes in, I'm afraid.
So the answer is who knows?
I think it was Thryn first.
I
Then
wasn't first.
I feel like you were before me.
I
Because I felt.
I think I was first.
I think
I think
was
Ryan was last.
Yeah.
Okay, I know for sure that you mentioned Briss's part in mine.
Yeah.
Because we were trying to work out where Vens ended up.
I think it might have been Charla, Briss, Belka, Vens is the order we did them in. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like the interesting tie to the episode from those to these questions from those 4 episodes is the one question that we didn't get in the Vens episode from the book that Vens was reading was like there's a question which was, can Corpus be blank? Which Ryan
it was the one
could have
question.
used-
It was the one question that I wanted to come up.
the one question that had direct use, like can Corpus be reasoned with? Can Corpus be defeated? Or like Vens could have used it in any of those ways. And yeah, we just didn't get that question, which I quite like.
Womp womp.
Womp womp.
Yeah, it did work out good in the end. But, you know. If only we could have known. I would have just asked, can Corpus be friends?
Can Corpus be friends?
I mean,
Can Corpus be dated?
Oof. Now we're playing Monster Hearts. Here we go.
Corin, meet your new dad.
Oh no. Absolutely
I
not.
hate it.
I hate it as well.
You're welcome.
So the last question we have written down is from Danny again, which is rank the characters in order of huggability.
Just the player characters or NPCs?
Player characters first, and then let's do NPCs.
Charla top.
I was gonna say probably
100%
Chala first.
Yeah.
And then all of the rest at the
Well,
bottom.
I mean,
And then all the rest of them.
no, Belka's very huggable.
I don't think they are.
I don't think they are, no.
I don't.
Are they one of
Chala
those?
spent a significant portion of the last episodes, like
Although, like,
choosing to hug Belka instead of Briss. So
I mean-
there is an order there.
Charla would have hugged Bones instead of Chris. I don't know that
Okay, yeah, fair.
means
Yeah,
anything.
I imagine that when Belka gets hugged, they're stood there like stiff as a board, just like.
Like, I think they do hug. Don't know how. But I think unless you're like a really good friend, they're not putting a lot of effort into it.
they tried
a
to hug
ceremonial
Briss.
hug.
They tried to
I was
hug
gonna
Briss
say,
that
they
one
did.
time.
It was trying to be a tackle.
Okay. Okay.
Like Vens, I imagine would give a good hug, but I can't imagine that Vens' personal hygiene is the best.
Yeah.
Stanky Vens.
He's lived in the woods for a long time.
Stanky hot man.
You want to see my bird's feathers?
So yeah,
Oh
Podcast
no.
cancelled. I
So
think that
Charla-
they would like hold your hand or pet your hair very easily. I think they have a different physical affection. I don't think hugs are for them.
Okay.
Yeah, so Vens would be up there if he just had a wash.
Vens, if
Yeah.
he had a bath, I would hug Vens.
I mean, I imagine everyone's probably pretty stinky at the minute. Like you've been
True.
on the road a while.
Yeah.
Briss, I don't know about huggability.
I imagine it's like
Nah.
trying to hug a knife. In that
A
you
really
get
kind
stabbed.
of
think-
recalcitrant knife.
Briss is less huggable than the ice bear, and I understand I rank the ice bear very high on the huggable scale, but on other people's huggable scale of the ice bear, Briss
Yeah.
is still lower.
I feel like Briss's character arc is becoming more and more huggable
Mm,
as the
That's
season
true.
goes on. Like that's Briss's
actually-
entire character arc.
like, I reckon
That's-
Briss
yeah.
would be good at giving a hug, but I think at the minute she would not give you one.
Yeah, it just wouldn't
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
A nice affectionate pat on the back to
Briss
Corin.
is like the forbidden hug. If
Not-
you get there, it's real good. But
Not even her own child knows the feeling, the warmth of a hug.
Adopted child, please, come on.
I feel like the only time
Keep it.
Briss would hug you is if you're both like in the wilderness, like, and it's freezing cold, and you need to hug for body warmth.
Briss
Yeah.
would hug
Briss-
you to stop you
No.
bleeding out. That's it. That's the only time.
If you're in the wilderness and you needed body warmth, she'd make you do jumping jacks.
Yeah. She would hug you
Okay.
only to compress blood into your body.
The
so
new
I think the rankings we've got are Charla, Vens, Belka, Briss.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, and
But it's
who's-
like Charla Vens Belka, and then Briss is like
Just
way over here.
yeah.
yeah.
I like in chat where it's Chala Vens, Belka, Strail, and then Briss.
Strail doesn't even have a
It's
body.
physically impossible.
It's physically impossible to hug Strail.
physically
do a
impossible,
spirit
but
hug.
Still higher
better.
ranked than Briss, I agree.
Yeah. Hugging a storm is a feeling. Yeah,
NPCs,
like
Nilcat.
100% no
4
cap.
arms.
I think
All them arms.
Twice the
I think
height.
Nilcat and Keen are my top 2 huggables.
Mm.
We
And
were
I
talking
think
about
also
this yesterday.
Tiller. Tiller,
Like-
they've got like strong farm arms.
That's
Oh,
fair.
I imagine Gyla Din probably gives a very big, because doesn't she also have the 4 arms?
Yeah, I
is
think
like
so.
Perfect.
Raoul, actually. I bet Raoul's a good hugger.
Briss would hug Rowell only.
And it
Yeah,
would,
like
it would
Ra-
take...
And it would be like as a contest.
Yes.
Raoul
I
is
mean,
like
obviously, Tamil gives really good hugs.
Yeah,
Obviously,
Tamil must be
yeah.
really up there.
Yeah.
Tyal as well. Tyal probably just goes full into a hug.
Hmm.
Big warm hug.
Gosh. Steve,
Yes.
this entire session has been really bothering me, but in the mirror behind you, that drawer is open on your chest of drawers, and it's driving me insane. That one single drawer. That's
Sorry.
just open.
1 second.
Please
Okay.
close your drawer.
Sure.
No more! It's been 1 hour and 40 minutes of me looking at that fucking drawer.
Does anyone have any other questions before we wrap this up?
Yeah, we have time for a couple more. Or we could, there might be a couple more in the doc that we didn't answer if you want to grab another
Oh,
one.
a question is Aloma Labrensis or Briss more huggable? Briss.
Briss.
Briss. Yeah.
Briss. Aloma Labrensis can only get punches.
Aloma
I-
Labrensis has
You
never
try
taken off
and
his
hug
armor.
him and it just turns into a punch.
Punch, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I reckon Aloma Labrensis has a family that he goes back to
No.
and is a real
No.
kind of like
And they refuse to hug him.
dad. No, I reckon he's like a proper, like, extremely good dad somehow, and just a complete dick everywhere else.
I don't think he's a good dad, but he probably does have like a really weird, like mundane family.
Hmm.
I imagine he's got like 4 perfect, like, soldier issue children with tiny mustaches.
Soldier issue children.
Just
Like,
baby
here's-
Hitlers
Here
all
are
the
your
way.
4 standardized children.
Oh man. He hasn't got a family, he's just part of a unit.
He's just, the kit just came with them.
Mm. Oh, yeah. 2 other
Oh.
questions. Have any of us played Pyre since it also has similar vibes? Yes, that was in one of the
Yup.
questions. Yes, Pyre is great. I love it.
Yeah.
I
never finished Pyre because I didn't want it to end, because I found out what happened at the end and I was like, nope, this will not happen. I'm just going to leave it forever.
I didn't
Yeah.
play Pyre, but I've seen other people play Pyre for just long enough to catch a sight of a very tall, behorned angel and go,
Yes.
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 Big
So, and then Belka was born.
And then the last question is, sans spoilers, what are you most excited about for the new season? Oh, someone's
Without
asked for
spoiling.
the Pyre big behorned person. Horns. I mean, we can do slight spoilers, I guess, but like nothing big. What are people excited about?
Ziz's
Prime.
character.
I'm excited for Prime. I
Prime.
think, in a way that isn't spoilerish, what I'm excited for in the new season is that it is way more fast-paced than Tiding. I think Steve introduced this concept to us, and we've really taken to it. We are definitely driving like we stole it. these characters are.
We are gonna ruin
We're
these
gonna ruin
characters.
some stuff.
Don't get attached.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's much more impulsive. I think it's much bigger. It's much more theatrical. Like everything is really punchy. It's very fast. It's very quick. It's really light on its feet, and it hits really hard. And I'm excited to do that for a short burst of time before I get tired and need to go to bed.
For people that don't know what the next season is, we're going to be playing Blades in the Dark, which is a game by John Harper, and we're using it to tell it like it's a game focused on scoundrels in like a sort of like the default setting is sort of a bit like Dishonored, sort of steampunkish. Our setting is set in the same world, so as Tiding, so it's set in a place called Embrace, which is canonically where Nilcat is from, and it's set about 25 years earlier. And just to give like a quick rundown of what that city is like, it's on a big island. It's at the confluence of two rivers, and the island is formed on the bodies of two dead remnants.
It's in the north.
It's in the north.
In the
What
north.
what I'm really excited about is I get to play a character using my actual home accent, which has been very good fun.
Every time before we record, Thryn puts on an Arctic Monkeys playlist just to get in
Just
the.
to remind me, just to really sink into it. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
an accent I have lost over time, but I miss a lot, and it's been really good to crack it out for this character.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
And,
is
like,
the season where
ahead.
we finally do accents.
We do accents.
You're only allowed to do an accent you were born with.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Our own accents.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm spending a bunch of time, and this is like mild spoilers, but doing Nilcat's accent, and it's a lot of fun.
We've been asked in chat what type of crew we are playing, and I think that's not a spoiler, right? That's fine.
Nah.
That's fine.
We are radicals. We are playing radicals.
Which is
a
like
custom
one
one,
of the
isn't it?
additional playbooks. Yeah.
Yeah, custom crew.
Yeah.
We
So
have
was,
had to tear some role books apart to make Blades in the Dark work in Rhine, but
yeah, we're basically using radicals because we're telling the story about a big revolution in the city, which has been a lot of fun to play. We're playing like not necessarily as the revolution as its whole, though we see bits of that. But we're playing as like one of the radical groups that do some of the not quite dirty work, but some of the direct action. Yeah.
we are a last attempt crew, I think, is how I perceive us. We are not the best at anything that we do, but when you have run out of options,
We
here
are there.
And if you can find them, maybe you can hire these fucking disasters.
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah.
It's gonna be good fun.
I'm trying to think like what I'm most excited about from it. Like the themes have been a lot of fun. Like doing a big revolution is a lot of fun and terrifying again. Like I like being extremely scared by the work that we're doing. Like maybe also the map that we've had
Yes.
commissioned.
Oh.
Which
It's
is
so pretty.
very good.
Yes, which I might see if I can screen share once we get to the end of this, if anyone sticks around. But we've commissioned a map for Embrace, and it's so good. Yeah.
The other thing that's really good at the moment is that every time we've come away from recording, every time the session ends, it's always like, that went really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that it feels really good to be doing this, and
Yeah.
at the
So
end.
I'm really enjoying doing a new character with the same group. Like now that we know a lot more about how to do
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
That's making it feel
Yeah.
a lot
It just
more
feels very
varied choices.
slick, and I'm
Yeah.
enjoying that. Yeah.
I'm also big into, like, as a GM, Blades has a couple of like really nice tools for me. Like one of them is like the faction game, so I get to create like loads of nice, interesting factions. But even like
so many factions.
So many.
I slimmed them down. I'm slowly slimming them down into these are the ones that appear on screen and trying to put them into different buckets. But then also like the second part of that is rivals. Every character in Blades and Dark has a rival, and I get to play around with like good rivalries and good like messy entanglements and stuff like that. It's nice.
I cannot wait for you to play my rival.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a very short running season as well. We're really getting a bit messy with the entanglements, like where there's no, oh, this person you've never heard of. Like all of us know everyone in some way or another. So it's building up quite nicely very quickly in that some people's rivals are becoming other people's, pals.
That's what it's like.
Special friends.
That's what it's like up north.
Yeah.
It's so quick.
I guess it's not a thing that I'm excited about because we've already recorded them. But we played some very good like world building games that I'm excited to release the episodes for.
Yeah.
So we played a very good game of The Ground Itself by Everest Pipkin, which is extremely good. If you like stuff
So
like The Quiet Year or
good.
Microscope,
So good.
Really good fun. Yeah.
you play it.
Yeah.
It's about like watching a place over time. And we also played an extremely hacked version of Bully Pulpit Games The Skeletons
For redacted reasons.
for redacted reasons. But yeah, it's been nice like interweaving some of those games into what we're doing.
I think we've also recorded this next season at possibly the best and worst possible time for us to be doing the exact kind of role playing that this season is. It's much more political than we're all working through some stuff. And it's cathartic.
It's much more like quickly and immediately political than Tiding.
Yeah.
Tiding has those themes, but they're going to be like a long payoff. Whereas it's nice to just do something that's like, oh, this is extremely on the nose.
Yeah. Eat the Rich, the role playing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like we can set fire to things and know that it belongs to a bad person rather than just some poor family who got lost in the store.
Hey. Hey.
Yeah. Embrace is going to be good.
Yes. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else we need to cover before we go off. I'm going to see if I can find this one little snippet of the map very quickly. But if there are any other questions or anything like that, then feel free.
Yeah, chat, this is your last opportunity to ask some questions.
We don't exist after this. We're gone.
Yeah, that's it.
No.
I have to go
We're-
put them
we're
all
shutting
back
it
in
all
the
down.
cupboard.
Steve has to go close his drawer.
I kind of closed it. It's fine.
No, you didn't close it though.
I closed it a bit.
That's why we don't record the video.
I specifically chose a place where there's like nothing behind me, so
Thank you, sis.
Look, even chat is saying that it's not closed.
It's closed enough. What if I opened all the other ones just a little bit as well?
that's fine.
No, it's actually better. Yeah.
Do it.
Even if they were uneven.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then it'd be like a feature.
Okay.
I'm gonna end the call.
Well, I'm gonna leave it. It's right there. Right there. Yeah.
Oh man, big rip. Oh, well,
I
whilst
can't believe
Adam's
no
looking
one's
for that
commented on my
picture.
elephant yet. Actually, that gauges to
I
balance.
did before we started casting.
Uh-oh. Oh, here we go.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
So
Oh,
good.
hang on, let me make it
It's
big.
really good. Make it big, Ryan.
Pretty.
There you go. Make it big.
While we're looking at this map, there is a good question in the chat that says, if your character was a scented candle, what would they smell like? Adam, you can choose an NPC.
Oh.
Oh, Adams gets to choose a remnant.
Oh yeah, remnant of your choice. What would relic smell like as a candle?
God. I think Ven smells like mown grass.
Ooh.
Okay.
Mhm.
I like that. Hmm.
I was talking with my mute on, but
Ah.
I was saying that Nilcat is definitely like grease and oil.
Mhm.
Like a
Look, that's
remnant
a mandel.
relic smells awful. I created like in some of my like just world building. There's definitely like a remnant of sandalwood in which its entire domain is just perfumes,
Ooh.
which
Okay.
smells like a headache, I imagine. But
Oh,
um,
yeah, actually.
Strail smells like
Lynx.
winter, I guess.
Some kind of lynx.
No.
Lynx Africa.
Yeah, Strail smells cold.
I'd say
Mm.
that frost smell.
Mm.
Yeah, Sharrow just smells like a zoo.
Mhm.
Like
I think
very
Belko-
big, musty.
Belka smells like cedar, I think. Like cedar wood.
Has everyone answered?
I've
No,
got
so
no
what
was
idea
Charlotte
what kind of a
smell?
candle bristle would smell like, unfortunately.
Oh,
See, I don't have a.
spoilers. Oh, let's close
Oof.
that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna show the other map as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's alright. Do you want me to make it small again while you do that?
Yeah.
Just make sure you haven't got any character sheets open when you open Roll20.
Yeah, let me,
I think. What does Chala smell like? I just have like, kind of food.
Someone in
not
chat
us
has said that Belka
Cinnamon.
would smell like library books, which is a
Yeah.
huge insult. Velka, who canonically despises books.
Yeah, but like, it doesn't have to be books. The smell of a library isn't necessarily books.
No, I think I'm going with like cedarwood and black pepper, I think.
Mm.
Maybe the smell of a monastery would be more appropriate.
Hmm.
But like cedarwood and black pepper, I like a lot. Okay, here's the screen share.
Imagine Charlotte just smells like pick and mix.
Say,
I'm thinking like cinnamon or vanilla or something.
yeah, it's just like various food smells. It's
I smelled a
nothing
candle.
floral.
Apple pie.
I mean, the
I
main
smelled
thing
a
that
candle
sticks in
around
my...
Christmas that was like jelly and ice cream, and that's how I imagine Charlotte's candle smelling.
I mean, honestly, I think she smells like wet wool.
Yeah, I can see that. Like a
Wet,
delicate
wet
one.
dog smell.
Basically, wet dog smell. Just because of all of the adventures and only ever wearing that parka.
I mean,
Like,
she did take
No.
the parka off when she went swimming that one time.
That's true.
this is true.
So-
This is true.
Mm.
Oh, Charlotte smelling like fresh bread is a good shout, actually, from the
Mhm.
chat.
Yeah, that is a good shout.
Are we
Okay.
looking at maps?
Yeah, here are two embrace maps that I'll just quickly show. This is the main. Oh, that's not it.
That's not it.
This is the main map that I initially drew, which has all of the places and districts,
Which is already a really good map.
Yes.
Like, this is
but not
cool
as
hell.
good as
So
Yeah, we'll-
excited.
We'll get more into it as we play. And then this is the map that we have commissioned. Who an artist
No,
called Ben
don't-
Swindon is working on.
No
It's so
screenshots
good.
of this because it's not finished and don't know whether we're
Yes.
allowed to
This is
share it or
a
not.
tiny
It's
part of
fair.
it. It's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's it for now.
It's going to be very good. Embrace is going to be very good. Please turn up to see us just absolutely drive some cars into some walls.
We will invent cars and then we will drive them into one.
We're going to go pretty hard. So,
Is that everything? Should we wrap up?
yeah,
I think
Yeah.
so.
We said it'd be a couple of hours, and it almost has been like bang on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1 hour,
Good
58
timing,
minutes.
friends. That's better than our normal recording.
Yeah.
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 Usually about 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you all
thank
for
you.
showing up. It's
Yeah, thank you all for
great,
listening.
and for asking questions and for just supporting us the whole way. It's been really great to like have people listening to the stuff that we do. It's
It's good.
like wow,
It's really good.
really flattering.
Yeah, and
I mean,
I think
mostly to wait. Which direction are you on the screen? That way?
Who?
Who?
You're pointing at Charles.
No, Bromwich. Damn it! Look, it's all in a different order on mine.
Okay.
Your
Like,
point
do gestures.
this way.
Like
This way.
Adam and Thryn for actually turning our games into like actual audio production stuff. It's so it's really amazing to hear.
Putting that multimedia degree to good use 10 years later.
Yeah, thank you for being editing goblins.
Oh, you are welcome, because you'll make a good show, and I have enjoyed role-playing with you for strangers on the internet.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you everyone for turning up and asking us some really good questions for stuff that actually is super fun to think about, and also just cool stuff that we want to talk about, and you have given us that chance. Please also never stop doing fan art. It's all so good. We love
We
it.
love
It's
it.
really good.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, the time when we got the first piece of fan art was like, yes.
That was
we
so
did
good.
it.
And it was everyone together, wasn't it? Because
Yeah.
we had a little kind of
And the
internal bet on who
shower-
was going to get the
shower was
first
in the
one.
background. It was really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. It was, yeah. But yeah, like, thank you for listening. And I guess, like, the thing to say is we're going to be releasing some stuff over the next couple of weeks. We'll be releasing this, not this Sunday, but the Sunday after, I imagine. And we'll also be releasing the Shards and Fragments episode. I don't know which order they'll come out in, but I imagine it'll be this first.
Shards and fragments could conceivably be before.
We'll see. Let's see how it goes. Yeah.
See how it goes.
See how the editing goes. And then we'll be kicking on to Embrace.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ooh.
I can't wait
Before
for-
we bounce as well, actually, I'm gonna make a shameless plea for anyone who enjoys our podcast to leave us a review on your podcast app of choice, or all of them, because that actually
Do that. Do all of
that
them.
helps us quite a lot, actually. All of you guys like pressuring your friends into listening to the show is really, really good, and you should keep that up. It's great. But reviews on apps and iTunes and so forth are very helpful for people who don't know you but want to know that at least one person thinks our show is good.
Great. I think that's everything. And also, like, if you ever have any feedback or like things you'd like to see more of, do let us know, because that always helps.
That's what the Discord's
One last thing, actually.
Okay.
I owe a personal apology to Alex because I still haven't sent him his postcard.
Steve!
That little thing we
Steve.
did about a year. That little production thing. That we
Steven.
sent you all postcards, and I haven't done it yet. Alex, I'm sorry. It's coming.
Steve
One
is
day.
coming to our house on Thursday, and I will make him write you a postcard.
Oh, man.
I like the idea of it just turning up in like 50 years' time. And Alex wistfully looking at the postcard, going like, "Oh, remember when?"
Flimsy ritual?
Granddad, what's this? Paper.
Granddad! Oh, man.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
But yes,
everyone.
thank you
Yes.
everyone for listening. It's been great to have you all along and in the chat and asking questions, and it's been great to have you all following these Flimsy rituals and chatting to us in the Discord and on Twitter and everywhere else that you kind of rave about us. It's super nice. Thank you.
Start waving too early.
Yeah.
Bye!
How do we stop this? Somebody better have a quick.
I stopped it. Don't worry, I got it.
Okay.
Okay.
It's like, how long do we need to wait for?